There we go. Got me?
I have you right there. We are now joined by 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, 4-time Indianapolis Motor Speedway winner, Jimmie Johnson, driver of the number 48 Ally Chevrolet for Hendrick Motorsports. I know we've got a lot of questions for Jimmie, so we're going to go right into it. We're going to start with Nate Ryan with NBC Sports. Go ahead with the question, Nate.
Yeah, Jimmie, I had a couple about next week's IndyCar test. We often hear about manufacturer conflicts being difficult and allowing drivers to navigate that. So I'm wondering if you could take us through how you got to test a Honda for Chip Ganassi Racing next week, and then if you had any difficulties being a Chevrolet driver testing a Honda.
No, everybody's been super understanding that, I just want to get on track and experience an IndyCar and see if it's something that I want to do in the future. I feel like it is, but my great relationship with Chevrolet, they were understanding that laps for me and any experience I can have in an Indy car is really the most important thing. As we all know, I had a test scheduled for April 6th with the McLaren folks in a Chevrolet, and very, very hopeful to find a date with them and test in a Chevy McLaren. And honestly, any test date I can get, I want to take right now just to get every lap that I possibly can. So thankful that things came together so quickly with CGR, and certainly there is the manufacturer conflict, but Chevrolet was very understanding of the situation, and we'll see where this all leads in the future.
And just to follow, how did it come together with Chip? And is there a chance now that maybe it looked like you're going to race for McLaren, but is there a chance you could maybe race for Chip in the future?
Yeah, I think I have a lot of options. Very fortunate to have many friends in the garage area. I've had a lot of conversations with more teams than just McLaren and CGR. And it's very early days. There hasn't been any serious conversations. It's really just been about going to the track for the team to look at me and to see and form their opinion of my abilities in one of their race cars. And certainly I have that same opportunity to see what I think of each team and what an IndyCar even feels like. So very early stages of all of this. It's hard to read too far into things at this point. But most importantly, I'm just thankful that teams are listening, willing, able, and taking me to the track just so I can learn.
Thanks.
Yep.
Our next question will come from Bob Pockris. Go ahead with the question, Bob.
Yeah, Jimmie, do you view this as a tryout?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a test, it's a tryout, and it's a two-way street, a two-way tryout for the team to look at me and for myself to look at a team.
And what do you need to see that would make you say, yes, I definitely want to race one of these, or I definitely don't want to race one of these?
Well, if I'm 4 seconds off the pace, then that's probably a quick sign that I don't need to be in one of those cars. So it's really, how I can feel the car, what my pace is like. Of course, it's unrealistic to think that I'll be, race-winning pace first test session. But if I'm within a certain amount of time and I have a good feel of the car, then for me, I feel like that's an important first step that I need to know that I could be competitive. I do not want to go race in any series and not be competitive. So it's really in those lines of sensing and feeling the car. Of course, lap time always plays a role in things. So from my standpoint, that's what I'm looking at. And on the team side, I would say it's pretty similar. They might have a few more things that they're looking at, but on my side, it's really about competitiveness.
Thank you.
Our next question will come from Claire B. Lang. Go ahead with your question, Claire.
All right. Jimmie, what is it about Indy? What is it about Indy, Jimmie? You have 4 wins, and you could become just the 3rd driver in history to win 5 majors races at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Is it something that sticks with you still today that you think you're good at there, or is it something of the past?
It took me a long time to figure that track out. I would say Indy, Martinsville, Sonoma were probably the tracks it took me the longest to be competitive at. And then once I understood, the driving style at those tracks, and more specifically to Indy, things really came my way. Having great race cars does not hurt. Great strategy is still very, very important today. And I've been able to capitalize on those opportunities with a good car and good strategy.
And some younger drivers say that the track is sort of uncomfortable for stock cars for them. It's not comfortable or something. It just feels different. But you have found kind of the sweet spot. What is it about that track that you like it, that you like Indy? What's the rush of it?
Yeah, for stock cars, we typically like a little bit more banking and certainly progressive banking so we can run side by side. Uh, there are two lanes for restarts, but to go fast, it really is a single lane racetrack and a very flat racetrack. So I don't think that fits into the NASCAR um, wheelhouse as well as it does for the Indy cars. I mean, it's a phenomenal place to race. We all know and get that. I think Indy cars with their added downforce and the fact that they can change gears on a lap and in different situations really puts on a good show for them. So for us, there are many things that we can do wrong at that track and affect our lap time. There's very little support from the banking, and it's easy to overdrive the car and then just slow yourself down.
Good luck on making history this weekend, okay?
Thank you.
Our next question will come from Bruce Martin. Go ahead with the question, Bruce.
Jimmy, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
Two questions. One, who have you spoken with in the IndyCar paddock in terms of drivers to get advice for your test, to get prepared for it? How much will you take note of tomorrow's race to try to help yourself when you have your test on Wednesday?
Yeah, I'll try to keep an eye on the television. I really plan on enjoying the day with my family. To have a 4th of July on a Saturday at home is pretty rare. So my priorities will be there. But knowing that, the cars will have data on them and the way that CGR is going to prep me for my Wednesday test session, I will have more than enough data to look at to get ready. So I will rely heavy on that. I was in the sim yesterday and starting to connect the dots and understand the track, understand braking marks, shift points, speed, all the things that you really need to know. So I think data will get me very close, and then being in the car is really the next step after that. And specifically for this test, I've really just been talking with Dixon. As you know, I was at COTA earlier this year, and I have a lot of friends that are in the garage area. And as the opportunity to test in April was coming around, many have reached out here and have said if I need anything to lean on them. But it gets tricky when you get outside of a specific team. So at least where I sit right now, I've just been leaning on Dixon to get ready for this test.
And you've run very well since NASCAR returned in mid-May, and this is one of your best tracks. So just how perfect would it be in your final season to get one last victory here in Indianapolis?
Man, it'd be storybook, to say the least. I certainly hope it happens. We've got a great starting spot and starting 4th, and my team is doing an amazing job. And we're ready.
Thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Our next question is going to come from Nathan Brown. Go ahead with the question, Nathan.
Hey, Jimmy. First question was, I know that you mentioned you were lined up to test Barber early this year, but for your IndyCar test to come at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where I know, as you mentioned, you've had so much success in NASCAR. There's so much history here. It's certainly a big road course race for IndyCar. Is there any way that makes it any more special for you to be able to step into an IndyCar for the first time at IMS?
Yeah, track-wise, I mean, I guess the oval at Indy would be the top mark, especially in my era of racing and how many races I watched on television with my grandfather and my father, watching the Indy 500, that is. So yes, of course, to be at such an iconic track does make it very special. And I've just been super excited to get in these cars and experience them. Things really started with McLaren a few years ago when we did the ride swap, and I was able to drive a Formula One car in Bahrain. And Zach Brown and Fernando Alonso have been great friends to me and helping me kind of pursue this single-seater open wheel, interest that I have. And certainly there are other teams interested, and that leads to the test with CGR. So, a lot of different things come to mind, and I'm very thankful for the friends that I have within the open wheel world. And I'm not sure where it's going to end up, where it's going to take me, but thankful for those relationships and these opportunities that I have right now.
On the NASCAR side of things, with the Xfinity cars taking the road course this weekend, I know there's been some chatter that there could be potential for the Cup cars to try that out at some point in the future. You mentioned that you guys have this history of only having this one lane here, making it kind of tough to run. will you be watching that Xfinity race closely? And do you think that there could be some positive aspect of getting you guys on the road course at some point in the future?
Yeah, I think our cars race good on road courses. I personally am torn to not have us on the oval with the significance of the oval and what we all know that means to motorsports. But our cars do put on a great show, on road courses, and I think street circuits are something we should definitely look at. If Cup does need to run on the infield, then there's a lot of other factors showing why they should. But personally, the oval for me is the major. That's the one we all want.
Great, thanks, Jimmy.
Yep.
Our next question will come from Mike Solarte. Go ahead with the question, Mike.
Hey, Jimmy, off the Indy path here, the AllStar race being on the 15th at Bristol, they released the format this week. What are your thoughts about the AllStar race shifting to the bull ring and the way that all the things that Bristol kind of lends itself to with the tight quarters and the dented fenders and that sort of thing? I mean, this will be your first one that you'll run away from Charlotte Motor Speedway. So how does your first thought on the racing aspect of it at Bristol, and then second, for the drivers having to travel, because most of you guys would just, jump in the car and drive over to CMS and be right there, as opposed to flying out for the All-Star?
Yeah, everything's been so different this year that this doesn't feel too far-fetched to travel for the All-Star race. I think, many of us have wondered what it would be like if it moved around, went to different venues. If it was on a short track, what kind of racing would we see? So I'm excited to see what really shakes out. And I think the potential is really high for an action-packed night, a very interesting or spectacular finish, if you will. When I think of the way the track races with the traction compound and lane selection being so important, the cone rule or choose rule now that's out, and how that might impact things, there's going to be plenty to talk about, and a lot of action and a lot of aggression.
Thanks, Champ.
Our next question will come from Casey Campbell. Go ahead with your question, Casey.
Jimmy, one of the questions that I have is regarding what kind of tracks that you may want to do in IndyCar. I know that you've said that ovals are out. Is it just road courses, or maybe would you want to try a street course like either Long Beach or Detroit or something like that? Where do you kind of stand with wanting to race IndyCars?
Yeah, for starters, I'm going to keep a close eye on things. Their safety on ovals is dramatically increased this year with the windscreen that they have. So I'll keep a close eye on things there and see how just see how the safety level looks. I mean, I've always wanted to race the 500. I would have to do a lot of selling to my wife to get that hall pass to do it. But my true desire right now is just to run the road courses, and there are 12 on the schedule right now, and I would be open to run all 12 if the right opportunity came along. But when I was a kid growing up, and the closest IndyCar racing for me was at Long Beach. So one of my hopes is that I am able to race at Long Beach. I hung on the fence a lot as a kid, watching and dreaming, had a lot of meetings as my professional career developed at the Long Beach Grand Prix with Chevrolet, thinking about what would be next for me, transitioning from off-road trucks to asphalt. So for me, there's a lot of sentimental value with that race, and I hope to race there. But I'm open to all. When you think of COTA, you think of Road America. There's just so many good ones to think about. Indy, obviously, I'm gonna have a chance to test there. That I'd be highly interested in every one that they have on the schedule right now.
All right, thanks, Jimmy.
Our next question will come from Jim Utter. Go ahead with your question, Jim.
Hey, Jimmy. I was just curious, are you playing any sort of role, whether officially or unofficially, with Hendrick in the future of the 48 car and its driver?
Not really. I've really just been focused on driving the race car and trying to grow our team and get every bit of performance that we can out of the car. I've not been involved with sponsor meetings regarding the future of the 48 or meetings with Hendrick Motorsports and who the driver might be. So it's really just been focused on performance and getting the most out of what I can this year.
And when you're when your full-time season is over, do you expect to sort of maintain any relationship with the team, or do you think you'll be sort of just moving on to the different things that you've been interested in challenging yourself with?
Yeah, all that's unclear. I mean, I certainly have my, um, all this history with Hendrick Motorsports, and, it's family. So I know I will stay in touch and be involved. But from a more organized or professional standpoint, nothing has been discussed at this point. So I don't know what that would look like. But my heart's with that 48, no matter who's in it, where it is. Hendrick Motorsports in that 48 car. That's family. That's home.
Thank you very much.
Good deal. Well, Jimmy, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us today, and good luck this weekend at Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Take care now.
Thank you,
See
Jimmy.
ya.
Our next availability will be right here at the same link with Christopher Bell at 11 o'clock. And if you did not hear my announcement earlier, there has been a change to the schedule. I will send around a note later today, but that Martin Truex Jr. will not be available this Sunday. He'll be available the following Sunday prior to the race in Kentucky. So that adjustment will be made to the schedule here today, but I want to make you aware if you were making plans accordingly for this Sunday. But we will have on Sunday afternoon, Matt Kenseth will still be available at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time.